In 2014, a scientific report, Primordial Electrophysics by the Electroscience International Team of Researchers, was published and made available to the public. Unique information about the origin and structure of the world at the micro and macro levels is expounded in the report in a way understandable to a wide audience.
The report contains information on the origin and structure of elementary particles, basic building blocks which make up matter, interrelation of elementary particles and cosmology in relation to unified field theory, electromagnetic and gravitational interactions, alternative energy sources, etc. It shows importance, scale, and timeliness of the latest knowledge in the field of fundamental and applied physics. It gives answers and relevant explanations for the main unsolved questions of contemporary physics.
Knowledge of the primordial electrophysics has opened a new stage in the development of experimental physics. On November 11, 2017, presentation and testing of the newest scientific and experimental device Pyramid took place, which gives tremendous opportunities in studying the phenomena of consciousness and personality as a beyond-the-body observer. Within the first few days, thousands of people viewed a video record of the sensational experiment.
In general, the program is very interesting in itself. It is aimed at studying our consciousness, reactions of our body and the like, at similar things. The fact that even in this design it should be much more powerful than Kozyrev mirrors is 100%. It is out of the question, so that you understand 11 tori in 2 modes, and a huge voltage difference, up to 72 volts. This is a tool for studying. Does it have an impact? It has. Does it work? It does. It works, even without any of these electronic gadgets. Although, electronics here are actually not as complicated as the design itself. This process is closely connected, let's say, with the hypothesis that you spoke about in physics. It is the azoosmic grid, movement, and all the accumulation. Does it violate the laws of physics? Yes, it does, guys. But not the laws of physics that actually exist. Therefore, the goal for you guys should not be a search for some earthly power, but studying the work of human consciousness, meaning how it influences psyche, what changes happen, and again, regarding an operator's work on transmission of symbols, that is, telepathic abilities. What is the whole point of this project? It is possible to prove on simple experiments that we have consciousness and where it is located. These are real subjective things that really work. When our consciousness calms down, personality gains a certain degree of freedom. As a result, we have the effect on a torus, as Constantine has described. Such an effect. Why has such an effect occurred in his case? Because we switched on the 5th and the 6th tori. Let me repeat again. It is the lower side of the detached top and the upper side of the pyramid itself, while between them there is exactly what is called primary consciousness. That is why a feeling of lightness and freedom arises like in a high-quality spiritual practice. This device actually gives an understanding of what the pyramids were needed for.
Unique experiments with the use of the pyramid device are now being actively carried out. Official coordinator of the project and actual participant of the Alatra International Public Movement, Zakhar Kravchenko, will tell us about that in more detail.
This device is interesting because it allows studying peculiarities of the septon field. Even the very geometry of this device is unique because it almost replicates the human energy structure, which exactly causes certain disturbances in septon fields and so on when passing through the isosmic grid, thus ensuring the so-called phantom viscosity. This experiment called the pyramid makes it possible to obtain scientific experimental evidence of those theoretical foundations that were expounded on in the primordial electrophysics report, and shown in the video version of the report. The goal of this project is to study the work of consciousness and body reactions during interaction of the human energy structure with this device, which allows not only theoretically but practically to show the location of such a field structure as consciousness, primary and secondary consciousness of a human being. This project is absolutely open for everyone who desires to participate, and we shall also be happy to cooperate with all researchers and experts in various fields of science. Everyone can register on the website allatra-science.org, fill in a form, and participate in the International Scientific and Experimental Project Pyramid.
The scientific and experimental project pyramid provokes a great interest among wide audience and scientific community. This is natural. After all, this unique equipment is one of a kind in the world and allows carrying out supernatural research of consciousness outside the body.
The knowledge of how it is possible to exploit and force the system to do something, even if we decide to do something from the position of personality. We need to get energy somewhere in order to transform, let's say, to force those very phantom particles. What do they receive from us? Information for performing a certain action, and for that, energy is needed in order to use them. It is clear that a human being is a well of energy. Generally speaking, this is an amazing result. It is certainly rare for an unprepared person. And for this very experiment, whether it is possible to somehow deflect a laser beam or, let's say, to exert some influence so that it would be visible, so that this influence would be really visible. Such an idea arose. First, we decided to perform an experiment, not on this device, but on another one. Nonetheless, this one is also powerful enough to cause such a phenomenon. We have a record, now we will show what our result was. But let's say, with a poorly prepared operator, that person is only starting his path. He's been working on himself really seriously for just a few years. Well, let's just say he succeeded, but we wish the result to be better. As for the second operator, he has certainly shown quite an interesting phenomenon. We will also see it right now. The person was supposed to displace a laser beam, sort of bend it a little bit, meaning to deflect. What's the point? Laser is laser. I understand that there are more powerful ones, there are different lasers, and so forth. We decided to simplify the process. We took an ordinary diode pointer. It's a laser, isn't it? It is a laser, and quite a powerful one. Here, as you can see, there is an ordinary wooden lathe, but it is straight. Here it is. Yes, here you can see it well. On this side, we placed a simple box, a regular box. Here, we fixed an ordinary laser pointer with Scotch tape. Here, the diode generates a laser beam. Everything is as it should be, but there is a slight dispersion. We used a tripod so that the camera would record well.
It is clearly seen.
Here it is. The laser is clearly seen. The task that we gave to our operator was to deflect the beam, meaning to influence it in any way he considers appropriate. We won't list the methods and how it occurs. No one needs the technique itself. On the lathe itself, we glued a 1mm paper along the entire length. We installed a camera above, but under the illumination, everything wasn't visible quite well. Neither the paper was visible, nor the laser beam. Well, generally speaking, we wanted one thing, but it turned out to be a little bit different. Yet the most interesting thing was what happened during the impact of the first operator. Let's show it.
The video, right?
Yes, the video record of the first operator. Right, and the video itself. This is interesting. Here's the first operator. Look attentively. He was supposed to direct into the middle part of the beam. Here the beam is visible, and he was supposed to deflect it. What was the outcome? We can show it once again if it is interesting, but it turns out there is interference, a slight dispersion. It appears in the form of a flash. All in all, he didn't succeed in deflecting the beam, but he did manage to interfere in these processes. I'm saying again, despite the fact that the person worked on the device and wasn't quite prepared, we changed the operator. We took, let's say, someone who can work without any devices, but we decided to let him work from the device in order not to discharge his batteries. Well, I'll tell you right away that we did discharge his batteries too. Why? Because the person became carried away. He was curious. So this video is more interesting. Turn it on. Let's watch it and see what came out of that. Then we'll see. This is already a direct impact. Such a flow around is taking place. You can see how the beam changes. Here, the laser beam is approaching, and here a power impact occurs. It's exactly the middle. Just look, here's the laser beam. You see, here it is going. It is distinctly going. It is here. If you look carefully, here it is. It is going. And here volume begins. A volume with clear dispersion and so on, precisely from this point. Unfortunately, we worked with one camera. Actually, we thought it was like an idea that it would deflect a little bit, maybe 1 or 2 millimeters, and we would see it. While in this case, it is even... You see how it veers about? Let's say the person directed the power of his attention to make it flow around. In any case, this demonstrates human abilities. Let's say, a human ability to affect even a laser. At the same time, this indicates that human abilities are really unlimited. We should simply create conditions for them to be implemented. Well, and again, they should be used in the right way. Many people are interested in this subject. It is clear that basically no metal devices can replace spiritual development. It is the work of every person on oneself, and so on. But can this contribute? It can. Everything, including technology, can contribute exactly to spiritual development. That's what science is needed for, isn't it? For bringing benefits. After all, it is much more important to use these abilities in order to find oneself. It is much more important and much better to feel at least a little degree of freedom from consciousness. And the very fact that you can influence consciousness, and not only it can influence you, and perhaps the most important thing, the most important one, is that it's a help for those who, let's say, when working on themselves, failed to attain, to understand in any other way, then at least with the help of modern devices, well, this one is not quite modern, but it's already a completely different story. Let's say to understand that you are not consciousness, that you are personality, to feel it at least for a moment, and then not to lose this feeling and continue developing it further. Then it can really benefit a person. However, people are more interested, let's say, in various paranormal phenomena. They are more interested in metaphysics rather than physics. In particular, many people are interested in a question of whether it is possible to look into the future. It's a very interesting topic for many. For those who do not know what this is, let's say, can the device allow tuning a person to that wave, which could shift his perception. I emphasize, not consciousness, not him, but his perception, to a certain remote future. Is that interesting? It is interesting that a person perceives it all at the level of pictures, first and foremost. If someone remembers and has been keen on this subject, let's say, while for those who haven't been keen on it and haven't been interested, but an interest would arise, you can read how Nostradamus described his experience, how that very Casey and other famous prophesiers, or clairvoyants, they are called differently, how they perceived the future. All of them perceived the future exactly as a movie in front of their eyes, meaning they saw. Some of them even felt that they were present, but they were present in the future, incorporeally. I mean, it's like there are eyes, but nothing else. And so they saw those fragments, perceived them, and so on. But now, if our operator desires and agrees to participate in such an experiment, we will try it on him. I just have an insistent request. I'll do the settings, but we won't film which tori and which parameters, okay? The ones we are going to set. In other words, let's turn the cameras away from the blocks during the next experiment. Those who take interest in this subject have observed that from time immemorial, there were such prophesiers who spoke about certain events that were supposed to happen in the future, and they really happened. That means those people saw it. How does this work? Something chaotic comes to a person's mind, and he learns to differentiate between what consciousness imposes, his personal experience, and real pictures that come, let's say, from the system, meaning those which he receives from the future. It's no secret that some prophesiers used certain supporting technologies. For instance, that very Nostradamus. Everyone heard about Nostradamus's egg. It's an egg-shaped metal structure made of various metals. It really worked. It somewhat resembles that very pyramid or something else when a person gets in there. Speaking the language clear to us, but unclear to the rest of people. Let's say, he brings changes into the excitation of stationary particles, which naturally causes mixing of the future and the present. Therefore, the person can observe. All this is again due to the structure itself. In actual fact, the future is changeable. A simple example. Many heard that there was the so-called black spider. There was that very Edgar Cayce, Vanga, and all the rest. God knows when. All of them unanimously said that the 44th U.S. president would be black, and that he would be the last president of the United States of America. Well, it's an indisputable fact. People predicted this even 600 years ago. There were a lot of predictions in this regard. Back then, nobody even thought that Obama would become a president, and that it could happen. When he became the president, many people actually became believers. Why? Because he was the 44th and black president. He was called the black man in some predictions, the black president, and so on. However, he was supposed to be the last one. But when someone interferes, then something that was supposed to happen might not happen, and everything changes. So, what do we have in this world nowadays? We have the 45th president in the United States of America, don't we? We do. Does America still exist? It does. So, everything is changeable. And so, that there is an understanding. Let's say, many prophesiers also spoke about the so-called end of the world, didn't they? Or the apocalypse. It is called in different ways. It is people themselves who, by their choice and exactly by their choice of whom to serve, the devil or God, are bringing closer or postponing the end of the world. It is really true that a lot depends on people. Although nowadays, even some respected people say that today, only a fool, or the one who doesn't see what is happening behind the window, may have doubts about the end of the world. This is really so. But we shouldn't be upset either. In this case, on the contrary, we should work on ourselves better and aspire to change What is predetermined? Predetermined does not mean that it will happen.
Knowledge of the primordial electrophysics in action represents an absolutely new stage of both the development of world science and the future of the entire civilization. After all, these studies provide an opportunity not only for a breakthrough in physics, but most importantly for a breakthrough in people's understanding of the primacy of their spiritual nature, exploration of themselves as a free personalities, and comprehension of their true spiritual life goal that has nothing to do with body or consciousness. This knowledge and its practical application open for humankind a path of the creative society based on priorities of spirituality and goodness.